From Ida to Ayahuasca. Today I'm going to share my really personal journey from how I first ever heard about ayahuasca, all the synchronicities that led me to my ayahuasca ceremony, how I prepared for it, what my actual ceremonial experience was like, the years of integration after my ceremony, and final thoughts from a clinical therapeutic perspective on how to approach your curiosity with ayahuasca or plant medicines or any type of psychedelics, as they're making a really popular appearance in the mental health space. All right, so getting started, how I first ever heard of ayahuasca. I was in Thailand making one of my visions happen, and definitely that's a video for another time, but I was in Thailand and made some friends there, and a little bit of a party crowd. They were quite seasoned. The people in that crowd were quite seasoned on various substances and definitely on psychedelics, and I really was not. I'd never done a psychedelic before in my life. My first psychedelic ever was ayahuasca, and then someone mentioned it and called it the God molecule or the God medicine, and I was just like, wait a minute. I've never heard of this in the party space. I've never heard of this in the substance use space. That's a pretty bold statement for a hallucinogen, you know? And so I was just like, okay, I'm quite intrigued now. And then I was introduced to a documentary called The God Molecule about DMT and ayahuasca, and then I watched it. I think it was about an hour documentary, and they talk about all of these big transformational experiences that people have with ayahuasca. The DMT molecule is the active, psychoactive part of the plant medicine and the journey itself, and it's the birth and the death hormone, and it's supposed to take you through a birthing experience and a death experience, and that's what your body releases when you're born, and that's what your body releases when you die. And I'm just like, all right, that's different. Never heard of any of these kind of things. And I had a peak of curiosity. I sat with that information, and then I didn't think about it anymore. 1 year after that, I was giving a talk at an event, and it was a music industry event. My personal favorite genre, EDM. And some of the people that I talked to there started talking about their experiences with plant medicines, and specifically this one person who had done 15 ayahuasca ceremonies. And this conversation just started out of the blue. And I was like, okay, here's ayahuasca again. Well, hello. Always in different countries. This one was in Ibiza that we had this conversation. And I was like, all right, so ayahuasca again. And this guy's done it 15 times. And I looked at him, and he seemed pretty grounded and pretty on point and clear and lucid and coherent and just had a cogent mind. And I'm just like, okay, I'm paying attention. What's going on here, right? Like, what is this guy's story? And, you know, when I learned a little bit more about him, he never done any other psychedelics, doesn't use drugs recreationally, doesn't drink, never tried marijuana, never tried cocaine, just barely has a beer once in a blue moon. And he went from that to ayahuasca. I'm like, okay, you got my attention. So what happened? Some of the things that he mentioned is that he never purged. So that's one of the big things that ayahuasca is known for. It's a purgative. And to be quite honest with you, one of the things that I was really afraid of was I didn't want to take this medicine and shit myself, right? I mean, come on, let's be real. And because you usually do it in like a group setting, and that's kind of gross, right? Not to mention vomiting, purging, getting really like vulnerable and you know, having absolutely no control and not knowing where you're going with it. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty and vulnerability that comes with a ceremony or an experience like ayahuasca or any other psychedelic. So he just seemed so grounded. So that brought a little bit more curiosity and a little bit more safety in my psyche about it. Because I'm like, okay, well, this guy didn't seem to lose his mind, or he doesn't seem too delusional or out there. He's not a drug addict or a psychonaut, as they call it in the community. So he caught my attention. And then he started telling me about the shaman that he works with, who goes around the world and has all these ceremonies. And interestingly enough, the shaman happens to be a woman, which was also very interesting for me too. I'm like, okay, this is cool. I'm paying attention. And he said, yeah, it's the head shaman. She's a woman, has a group of facilitators who are all women except for this one male facilitator who's the youngest in the group. And as my friend was telling me about the one male facilitator in the group who happens to be based in the UK, and my friend and I were in Ibiza, this gentleman named MJ literally comes right in front of us at the corner of the street. As my friend and I are walking down the street this way, once we get to the corner, MJ shows up right here. As we were talking about it, as my friend was talking about it. And I'm like, oh, hello, synchronicities. Here you are, right? So not only did the conversation start again, it had to be a person that is telling me about it in a way that is catching my attention and kind of removing a little bit of my fears. He's telling me about his facilitator or shaman that does this and one of the members, and boom, there he is. I'm like, all right. Here I am paying more attention. And as we crossed paths with MJ, my friend was like, oh, MJ, we were just talking about you. And I look up and I look into MJ's eyes, and he had this very mysterious, deep wells of compassion just constantly moving through his eyes. It was a very, very surreal experience. And it wasn't scary at all. It was very loving and compassionate, very deep. And I've never seen anything like that before. And as soon as I locked eyes with him and I saw this interesting experience and depth in his eyes, I just got this intuitive feeling. I'm like, okay, if this is one of the people that's facilitating this very powerful medicine, I'm in. This feels safe. I would feel safe with someone like this. And it was just a feeling that I got. Not that I had done any extra research behind it. It's just all about word of mouth and how the conversation was just blossoming and opening, and the synchronicities were happening, and the synchronicities were the things that were making me pay attention. And so as this encounter happened with MJ, that got etched in my head. I kept thinking about it, and then when I came back home to California, I stayed in touch with my friend, and then I started doing a little bit of research on ayahuasca and learning, about its purgative qualities a little bit more. You have to go detox and cleanse, which is they call dieta, because it originates in South America. So dieta, diet. There's a specific diet. It alkalinizes you, and there's a lot of abstaining, including abstaining from synthetics, as well as any kind of sexual energy or arousal, as well as very specific foods that one cannot eat. The sexual energy arousal has to do with this concept called a kundalini rise or kundalini energy, which is basically which is considered your spiritual energy that comes from the base of your spine and then shoots up all the way to the top of your head or the crown of your head. And a plant medicine journey like ayahuasca will full on activate that process, the awakening of the kundalini energy. And so there's a lot of preparation that needs to be done beforehand, as well as interfere with or put your body in a kind of a specific type of baseline or equilibrium or cleanse to prepare for a very powerful medicinal experience that one would sign up for doing plant medicines. Also, because of the types of plants that are used and mixed together, they could cause you to have more digestive problems and more purging if your body is acidic. And so that's why it's required or recommended, actually should be really required, to alkalinize the body with a diet. And then the synthetics, to just abstain from synthetics, to again just cleanse the body and clear the body. This is considered originally, when it's done correctly, to be a highly spiritual experience. Now, a little side note, other things that I learned about it, Ayahuasca is not something that was necessarily part of the community's experience. Ayahuasca was something that the shaman of the tribe or the indigenous group would take, and the shaman or the visionary or the seer or the town healer, someone who's considered to have extraordinary connections with the spirit world, it was their job to take ayahuasca and connect with the spirit world and get the downloads from the spirit world, and then give it to the community and give those downloads or those information or the teachings or the healings to the community. That's why it's really important to honor the sacred roots of a medicine like this. There is a very important ceremonial aspect and preparation aspect to it. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that when it's not done correctly, and if you're not correctly prepared for it, which I'll get into towards the end when I give my synopsis as a mental health provider on my thoughts on ayahuasca and mental health in general. It is an experience or a medicine that could have very serious and damaging side effects with antidepressant medication, which could result in serotonin syndrome if someone is not mentally and emotionally and structurally prepared for ayahuasca or other plant medicines. It could cause severe suicidality and death by suicide, as well as a psychotic break, as well as seizure disorders. So this is some pretty heavy duty stuff. So if you've been curious and you want to learn about it, please educate yourself, and please be honest with yourself. If you're not prepared in the right way, don't put yourself in a risky situation. Prepare yourself correctly, or accept that it might not be the right path for you. That was my little side note. Going forward, did my research, learned about these things, and realized that, you know what, I think ayahuasca may be right for me. I have done a lot of work on myself, just being in the mental health space. Also, I do have a history of a lot of complex trauma, and I have not medicated it before, and I did know that my nervous system would benefit from a reset. And I figured on a spiritual level, I'm very intrigued because it's called the God molecule, and there is a very spiritual, a very real spiritual component to the plant medicine journey. For my own personal needs, I was ready for a nervous system reset to see on a physiological level if what the medicine can actually do medicinally, not just as a psychedelic, but the medicinal part itself for my nervous system, for giving me a new baseline, for helping, maybe remove some trauma from my body. And then just the unknown experience of like, okay, this is what it means to surrender and let go of control. And, I don't know what it is. Just out of genuine curiosity to see, well, what is this? What is this thing that keeps showing up in my life in very synchronistic ways? And catching my attention so strongly. So I got in touch with my friend. My friend connected me to his shaman, and his shaman was going to have a ceremony near where I live, just maybe 2-3 months after I had the conversation with my friend. And I was like, okay, it's happening. This is happening. So I got connected with the shaman. I started preparing for the ceremony. I did the dieta, and some of the things to keep in mind is, oops, sorry, that was really noisy. The plant medicine ayahuasca comes from, South American indigenous tribes. One of the more well-known tribes is the Shipibo in the Amazon, in the Peruvian Amazon. And Native Americans, indigenous, and a lot of indigenous tribes, not just Native Americans, but a lot of indigenous groups do believe in the interconnectedness of all things, and that everything has a spirit. Like the concept of spirit animals usually comes from indigenous thinking. So animals and plants also have spirits with this belief system. They talk about ayahuasca as the spirit of the grandmother. So she's a feminine spirit, abuelita, the grandmother, and she is the divine mother, the divine feminine, Mother Gaia, Mother Earth, however you want to know it or understand it. That's usually the bulk of how her spirit is described and what her medicine is. It's mother medicine, or the grandmother medicine, or divine feminine medicine. When you decide to sit in ceremony with her, you start to connect with her spirit. So you meditate with her, you journal with her, you set your intention with her. It's very highly personified. And it's something to note, and it's something to respect and honor, because that's how the medicine has made its way to our modern day time through, ancestors and lineage. I would pay it the same kind of respect if you were interested in doing this type of work. And so I connected with the medicine, did my dieta, set my intention, and as usual, when it's time for a really big change in life or a really big transformation, life will show you a real crossroads where you have to make a decision. Are you going to stay in the same lane that you've always been? Or are you going to get off this lane and go a different direction, the unknown, the mystical, the mysterious, the change? Are you ready for the change? And so crossroads was put in front of me. I started becoming more and more scared of sitting with the medicine the closer I got to my ceremony. A lot of my survival fears were coming up. A lot of my trauma fears were all coming up. And I didn't know what to do with it. And then I started questioning myself, like, what in the world am I doing? Why am I sitting here just listening to these stupid synchronicities? Like, did I get too caught up in the woo-woo community? And now here I am making these stupid decisions, taking heavy-duty, like, psychedelics and hallucinogens, and I don't even know, and I'm feeling really lost right now. What the actual F, right? But obviously, spoiler alert, I did sit with the plant medicine, but I was having my own little existential crisis along the way. And so the day came, I drive to the place where the ceremony was going to be. It started on a Friday, it ended on a Sunday. So 2 nights of medicine, 2 days of integration, and then go home. So I get there on Friday. We were a total of 28 participants, and I think I was one of the first people that arrived. And from us 28, only 3 people had taken ayahuasca before. We were all first timers. And how it was is it was kind of like a yoga kind of studio, or just some kind of fitness studio that you could think of, just this big open space. And then they made an altar in the middle, they as in the facilitators, and then everyone would put their mats all around, so making a circle around the altar that's in the middle. All of the facilitators and the shaman, they were all wearing white, and it was kind of see-through, and some people weren't wearing underwear, and all of a sudden I start spiraling, and I'm like, what did I just come to sign up for? I don't even know who this guy was that introduced me to this group of people. Why are they dressed like this? It was all a fear spiral, right? I was like, what did I just sign up for? What is going on? What are they gonna do? Who are these people? And I just snapped. I was scared. I full on activated myself in a sympathetic state, or in a survival mode, or in a trauma response. Because I was just absolutely terrified. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know these people, and I'm here and I don't know what the heck I'm doing here, right? And I gave myself a really, really bad headache, a really bad migraine, to the point where I started projectile vomiting all over the place. And I couldn't stop. So say I got there around, let's say 3 or 4 o'clock. The ceremony starts around 9 o'clock, so about a solid 3 hours I was spiraling, and I was sick to my stomach, and I was really embarrassed about it, and I was trying to hide, and then MJ, one of the facilitators, noticed I wasn't doing well, and I had a really bad headache or migraine at that point, and so he had me lay down, and he did some kind of just put his hands around my head without touching me, didn't touch me, put his hands around my head, and then kind of moved his hands back, and I swear the pain was gone. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what is this? Then I spiraled some more, of course. I'm like, what is this? What is this guy doing? What kind of like weird stuff is this? I've never seen anything like this before. What's going on? How did he do that? Da, 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 da. Is this all in my head? I totally spiraled, right? And I was like, okay, all right, well, at least my head doesn't hurt anymore. Okay, this is good. All right, let me just sit with this for a second. But then I couldn't stop the nausea and the purging, and at this point my stomach was completely empty, so I was just dry heaving. And I was dry heaving like every 10-15 minutes on the clock. It was really bad. And then we finally sat in circle, and the shaman introduced herself, and everyone started to kind of introduce themselves, and I was trying to hide in the back somewhere. I didn't want to be seen because I felt and probably looked like shit. And the people, the participants there all told me I looked like ghost white because I was terrified. You know, I was in a full on anxiety attack, right? I was just so scared. I ended up, I ended up having to introduce myself. I couldn't really sit up very well because I had lost all my strength because I was so pain and discomfort and fear. And I ended up getting help from the other facilitators. They all kind of helped to kind of like calm my nervous system down, relax me, because I was really going through it. I was really struggling. And then finally the ceremony started, and everyone was getting ready to take their cup of medicine, the ayahuasca, and I couldn't because I kept dry heaving every 10 to 15 minutes. And so all I was thinking in my head, I'm like, this is a purgative. I'm kind of already pre-purging, you know, like, yeah, I don't know if this is smart for me to take a purgative on top of just already being in a state like that, right? And then I had like a little window where, you know, my stomach relaxed for a second. And then one of the facilitators was like, here, take some medicine. I was like, is it okay to take it? And I swear the heads of all of the facilitators simultaneously nodded yes. And they're like, just take it. And so I took a small cup, and I kid you not, it just relaxed my stomach. It actually was genuine medicine. It was genuine medicine. Like, imagine if you have like heartburn and you take some like heartburn medicine, and all of a sudden it just stops, just completely stops. It was like that. It's like as soon as I took the medicine, my stomach spasms completely stopped, and my stomach relaxed, and my nervous system relaxed, and my body relaxed. And so that was my first introduction to its medicinal aspect and actual physical medicine. So it did calm my nervous system. It did show me that, hey, I'm here to relax you and make you feel safe and make you feel calm and give you a new baseline from whatever spiral and active anxiety attack that you're having right now, right? The medicine was kind of communicating that, right? And it worked, and I was really grateful for it. And what ended up happening after that was I finally got a chance to rest. I had scared myself to the point of just sheer exhaustion. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, how just being in stress mode or fear mode or anxiety mode, it's really exhausting. It really is energetically taxing. And as soon as I was able to rest and relax and the night was going on, all of a sudden I realized like they're just singing and dancing, and then they're just singing live music, and there's live instruments, and it's just beautiful music, and a music that the indigenous called Icaros, which are the medicinal lyrics that are inspired by the medicine. But these were all in English, and they were all just songs about love and peace and unity and oneness and joy and happiness and ease and like the love and joy of life and playfulness. And it's really beautiful. It was really beautiful, you guys. It really, really was. And the first insight that the medicine taught me that night was, wow, your fear really robbed you of a beautiful experience. My fear really robbed me of a beautiful experience. I prepared so much for this like epic experience, and I let my fear take it away from me. So then the next night, the next day we went and we shared, and I was listening to people's ceremonies and journeys, and most people had pretty good experiences, and the head shaman was just helping people understand what they saw. You know, we were doing some integration work, and help explain it, and then people were teaching each other at the same time, when we were like feeling sick and nauseous, if you breathe through it, it takes away that feeling of nausea, or we saw rainbow colors, and that's the rainbow bridge, and that's a very spiritual component that I'm just not going to get into in this video, because this is a very long video as it is. But just little insights and teachings that came along as people were sharing. Enjoy. And when they were sharing this, I was really paying attention. And of course, what I was sharing was about my fear, and how it robbed me of a great experience. And I think I had something to offer there as well too. And then there were people who were really closed off and they didn't have any experiences. And there were people that purged and there were people that didn't purge. And from all of us 28 people, there was only one person that had a bad trip, for lack of a better way. And she said that it was the worst night of her life, that she felt like she was going through hell, and that she would never want to do anything like this again. And she left. She didn't stay for the second night. So and she was sitting right next to me, and she was a nurse, and I could see her distress because she was crying the whole time, and I just wanted to comfort her. But the facilitators had really good boundaries. Nobody interrupt anyone else's process. That's what they are there for. And she kept seeing my physical distress. Me as a mental health provider wanted to take care of her. Her as a nurse, she wanted to take care of me because she saw me in so much physical distress. And so I guess both of us had our shadows to work through the first night. Hers were in her mind, mine was in my body. And she didn't stay for the second night. She left. And that also stood out to me, because then I'm like, okay, I'm not letting my fear get in the way the second night. I already had a bad trip, my version of a bad trip the first night. Actually, I didn't have a bad trip. My body freaked out beforehand. Medicine actually calmed me down. And then the second night, I was ready to go all in, and remembering all of the information that I needed to remember to make it the best experience I possibly could, to get the best out of the experience I possibly could. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have a bad trip either, and develop some trust in my facilitators to just like fully let loose and let go. So we were sitting in ceremony that night, and they were serving the medicine, and I was ready, and I took one full dose of the medicine. I sat down with a specific breath technique. I did the breath of fire, for any of you that know. And I allowed the breath to take me into the journey. The first vision or hallucination that showed up were these like creepy clowns with red eyes. I think I've heard Joe Rogan talk about that and his DMT trips as well too, or other people. But as soon as I saw that, like it was just for like a split second, in my mind, I was like, oh no, I did not go through all of that hell yesterday and get all the way here today for this. And I stated a clear no in my mind's eye. Like, no, this is not what I signed up for. And all of a sudden, it felt like I went through some kind of wormhole tunnel. It took me into a completely different experience. And then something beyond my control started to move my arms in all these different directions, or mudras, or I don't even know what to call these, like just different directions, different movements, which later on I found out is part of a Kundalini rising or Kundalini energy. And it was kind of interesting, but it was smooth, and at the same time it felt like it was very guided, and it had edges, and like my arms were moving through these energy spaces, and I wasn't controlling it. I was just allowing it to move me. And then I went into this black void, and then I saw these like beautiful mandalas, like just kind of flashing in the corner here to my upper left, with really beautiful colors. And if you don't know what mandalas are, they look kind of like kaleidoscopes. You can look online what they are. It was really just outlined and just quick glimpses of them. And then I came right back, and I was fully sober and fully lucid and fully present. And I don't know how long that took, how long that experience was. I ended up purging one time into the bucket, and then I breathed through the nausea, and then it was gone. And then I never felt nausea again. It was done. It was completely done. And I didn't shit myself. Yay. So anyways, going back to the next cup that I took. So I was like fully alert, awake, ready, lucid, present. And I was like, okay, that was cool. That was different. I don't know what that was. I'll probably figure that out some other time. But I'm ready for another cup because I'm back. I'm sober, right? So I go and I take another full cup, and I breathe through it, and then all of a sudden I get really emotional, and then it takes me through an inner child healing, and it was just this vision of me as a little girl, and then I'm being wrapped by the arms of possibly the grandmother spirit herself. And then it felt like I was being wrapped by this warm blanket and just kind of soothing my inner child. Not only was that medicinal and a gift of healing that I was given through the medicine, through the spirit of the grandmother, through the ceremony, but it also taught me a technique to gift and offer my clients, especially when I walk them through regression hypnosis, because I'll take them back to their childhood and I'll know how to help integrate them because of that experience that I had myself. So not only did it gift me with a healing experience, but it also gifted me with a tool to offer to others, which I thought was really, really cool as well too. As I was just laying down, processing that, crying, going through that vision, just having a healing experience, feeling this warm blanket of love wrapping me all around, which is just really comforting. It was a really nice experience. One of the facilitators came by, and she was just kind of like sweeping like feathers and making whooshing sounds to kind of like, I guess, move that energy out of my system. And I think it helped. I think it worked. And I don't know how long that process took, but it sat with me as a point of wisdom, as a point of knowledge, as a point of a gift and a tool and an offering. And then I woke up from that ceremony, from that second round of taking the medicine, and I was fully alert, I was lucid, I was present. I looked around and everything looked normal, and I looked normal, and there was no hallucinations, no colors, no rainbows, nothing. And I was like, okay, I'm ready for another one. Let's go. So I went and I took a third cup. And when I took the third cup, I went and I sat back in my seat and did my breathing. Again, no nausea. I was full of energy. I was alert. I was alive. I was awake. I was animated. And I turned around and I looked at the shaman. And it still gets me a little emotional because it was just such a beautiful, beautiful experience to see. And again, I wasn't hallucinating in any way. Everything was clear. Everything was lucid. Everything was normal. And I looked at the shaman, and her and her group, they had already started singing and playing the live music, the medicine music. That's what it's called, the Icaros, the medicine music, the music that's supposed to help your soul, your spirit, your body, your nervous system to heal and upgrade to love, unity, connection, and peace. And as she's singing, oh my gosh, great, I'm crying on camera. It's so beautiful. As she's singing, she's standing there wearing all white, and in her core, I see the only hallucination I had was, or third eye vision, whichever way you want to describe it, I see this golden egg this just sphere of this golden egg. And it's very emotional. And as she's singing, I could see this filament, this line, this like tube coming out from this egg-shaped golden sphere in her core, coming up through her chest, through her throat, and then coming out as the song that she was offering. And it was really beautiful. And it was just, it still makes me very emotional. And it was just so beautiful. And it just came out like this, like beautiful, like a cloud. And it was just kind of like spreading around and just kind of dissipated in the room. But it was just like, wow, what a beautiful thing this woman is offering. And woo! All right, I'm back. Sorry, this was very emotional, as you can see, as plant medicine journeys can be. And as she was sharing her song, her gift, her soul, her spirit, her peace, her love, I could see that everyone else there was doing the same thing too. Not that I saw the same gold sphere and filament coming out of anyone else. I just saw it through the head shaman, the head facilitator, and everyone else was just singing and playing live instruments, and I knew I had to dance. I just had to get up and dance. And nobody was getting up and nobody was moving, and I had so much life running through me, and I saw this beautiful vision from the head shaman, and I had these two really profound experiences with the two drinks I had before, or the two servings I had before, and I had to get up, and I did. So I got up, I started dancing. Other people it looked like they were kind of like unfreezing or thawing out from whatever stillness they were in. So yeah, everyone got up and danced, and it was beautiful. And the altar that was in the middle, because of our movement and dance, it changed to a mandala, like one of the mandalas that I saw in the first drink that I took. And then the next morning we integrated it, and that's when I officially went from Ida to Ayahuasca. So I started as Ida, pre-purger, then Ayahuasca. And of course I was in a good mood. I was really in a high vibe place afterwards, and everybody was. And the second night, nobody had a bad experience. Nobody had a bad trip. It was just that poor lady the first night, and she left. She didn't stay for the second night. Now, that before I left, I also learned about other medicines, psilocybin / magic mushroom ceremonies, cacao ceremonies, and the toad medicines, Kambo and Bufo. Those I will definitely talk to you about in other videos. This is my psychedelic journey playlist. This is the first one because this was my first journey on psychedelics. But from this retreat, I learned about mescaline and I learned about wachuma, and these two are considered the grandfather medicines. So toad medicines, grandfather medicines, cacao ceremonies, mushroom ceremonies, and of course ayahuasca herself. So going forward from there, I sat in this ceremony 6 years ago from the time that I'm recording this video. And the past 6 years, I have still been integrating what I experienced, what all of it meant. And one of the things that I want to really highlight here, just from a mental health professional perspective, as I shared a very personal experience with you all that I had, is that I think for me, I was somewhat ready for this plant medicine journey because before I even sat with a psychedelic, I had done a lot of work. And most people that sit in these communities haven't. They feel like the medicine is going to be the thing that's going to save them. Medicine is part of the healing journey. It isn't the absolute point of healing. It's supposed to bring you insights, understanding, integration, help with your nervous system, help with downloads if you subscribe to that philosophy, or insights or awareness, but it basically gets you out of the survival brain into the brain where solutions and paths and clarity comes. That's really what this medicine does, and what all medicines should do, at least in the spiritual mental health space. The point is to get you out of a survival brain or a survival body into a brain that can thrive and create and grow and transcend. That's something to keep in mind if you're curious about this medicine or any other psychedelics or medicines. And when I talk about, I had done a lot of work before I sat with ayahuasca. You know, obviously as a mental health professional, I used every tool in my toolbox. I did a lot of processing, a lot of trauma release, and one of the biggest trauma release works, one of my favorite medicines by far, I did a lot of breath work. I'm trained in transformational breath. It was roughly about a 1-year training. And I did breath work for 6 years before I sat with any kind of psychedelic. And I was already physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually prepared for something as powerful as ayahuasca. And I think that's why I was able to have such beautiful experiences, because with breath work, you can also get those same DMT hallucinogenic releases, those same downloads. They just don't force you past your readiness. Breath work doesn't force you past your readiness. Substances do. Substances take you past your readiness, which is okay. And you have no control of where it's gonna take you. That's part of the journey. That's part of the medicine. It's surrender, and it takes some time to come out of it. So it does require a very self-honoring approach to it, self-respect approach to it, as well as honoring and respecting the ceremony itself, the process itself, the medicine itself. Do it, if you're gonna do it right. And make sure that you've done your background work before you sit with something like this. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, there could be some very dangerous side effects from it, and it's a real thing. And don't put yourself in a dangerous category if you don't have to. Know what your capacity is, and if you don't know, talk to someone who's professional enough that can help you understand your capacity. Talk to a qualified person, whether in the spiritual community, in the coaching community, or the mental health community. And don't be self-negligent. Really respect yourself, respect your body, and respect the process when you decide to do something as very intense as a plant medicine journey, especially ayahuasca. Now, the other thing that's so important, that's incredibly overlooked, which I'm personally a little unhappy with, is how poorly the integration process is in most plant medicine journeys. So make sure when or if you are sitting in a medicine ceremony, or you are going to use a psychedelic, make sure you really do your due diligence to integrate the process. My recommendation is don't take too many plant medicines, don't do too many ceremonies, don't use your hallucinogens too quickly in a row. Like I said, I've still been integrating my experiences for the past 6 years to understand them and educate myself, because I also help people integrate their process, because I was so let down by the communities that I was dabbling with, to see, what do I do with these experiences that I had? I don't understand them. Thank goodness we live in the age of information, and I am such a curious person, and I have to know answers, and I had these deep experiences, so I kept searching until I found answers. And so that's where I feel comfortable, and I know I can help guide people to integrate after a medicine journey. And I strongly recommend that if you are going to go down that route, make sure that you have a strong integration protocol. And what I mean by that is the facilitator going to be your integration person? Do you have a person that can integrate you? Do you have a path to follow, a way to understand what you experience, how to process that, because those experiences that you've had? And And let me explain integration even a little bit further. What's happening when we take some kind of hallucinogen or plant medicine journey is that we start to consciously witness our own subconscious. That's why in my case, I had some childhood things come up because that stuff was in my subconscious. That was part of my experience and journey that needed to be seen, and I was open, ready, and prepared for it. Hallucinogenic experience I had, that was considered a whole spiritual kundalini awakening, arising, going into the void, seeing structures of creation, which is the mandala or the torus field or whatever you want to call it. Again, deep dives, you can get into that stuff. It's opening you up to a different reality, one beyond what you're used to seeing in your day in, day out. And if your mind and your psyche isn't prepared for that, you need to have someone guide you through that. And if you don't have the right spiritual tools and guides along the way, it can get very confusing, and that's where it can also be very threatening to your mental health, where people can have psychotic breaks, where people can get very delusional. Some people do get God complex, thinking that they're gonna, give birth to the Messiah, thinking they are the Messiah, thinking that they need to go kill their shaman. Some really dark stuff comes out of it, or people lose their mind and they lose touch with reality because it's not being integrated correctly. And so make sure that that's part of the equation if you choose to go down that route. So understanding what the spiritual downloads are and integrating that. So rather than staying open and fragmented spiritually, you integrate and come back to spiritual wholeness from the messages and experiences that you have. Same with, rather than staying fragmented with the clips of maybe childhood or background traumas or woundings that you've had, to once they come to the surface, to integrate that and process that and bring that back to wholeness. And then what messages or gifts that it gives you. My third cup that I took, some, depending on what school of thought you work with, one could say my third eye opened and I had a vision. I was able to see someone's love and gift coming, someone's spirit, someone's aura, however you want to explain that. There's different schools of thought. Or if you really want to just keep it very concretely scientific, my hallucination, I had, gold colored glasses instead of rose colored glasses. I had gold colored glasses. It took me to a happy place, which is not a bad thing. However you want to spin it, right? And there are many ways to look at it. And that also needs to be integrated, to look at that analytically. What does that mean? Why did you see something like that? Why did that have such a profound impact on you? Where did it take you from there? That's all the integration process. But a lot of people don't do that. And I really talk to people in these ceremonies and in these communities because I really wanted to get a better understanding, kind of put a little bit of my psychology researcher hat on to see, like, okay, where does this stuff lead people to, right? And a lot of people, like, I use the word psycho, not something that came from me, something I learned from just being in these communities. A lot of people go and just use these psychedelics as a form of escapism, as humanity will always do. That's just part of human nature. Just be aware, what are you doing this for? What are you using this for? Or they keep going to get certain messages or downloads or insights or awareness, and they keep going to these hallucinogenic places and these ceremonial spaces, and they're like, yeah, I keep getting the same message. It's been, a handful of times, the message won't change. It's like, well, maybe it's time to do something about that. Maybe if you're not getting anything different, then you don't need the medicine anymore. Maybe this is the time to go and do the thing that the insight is teaching you or the medicine is teaching you. And that part's just as important or even more important than going on a journey, right? So the journey gives you an interrupt from what you've known. It gives you a pattern interrupt. It taps you into your subconscious. It helps you go through an ego death, a conscious ego death. but then you have to rebuild something from there, or you have to do the work from there, or you have to integrate from there. That part is so, so crucial. So that is my take on ayahuasca. And like I said, that was my first plant medicine journey. I have done many other journeys after that, and I will continue to share my personal experiences through this series, which include my experience with psilocybin, mescaline, Wachuma, which is San Pedro, Cambo, which is not a psychedelic, but it's a toad medicine, and Bufo, which is a psychedelic and also toad medicine, and share those insights with you as well, just in case you're curious for your own journey or your own education. And I will always, always, always stress the importance of integration as being a key pillar to your journey. I hope this information helped you. If you're interested, I want to hear about your research on ayahuasca, or if you've experienced it, would love to hear about your experience on ayahuasca in the comments tab. Or if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them in the comments tab as well too. May peace be with you. See you in the next video.